Today we have Camila. You are a managing director of Swan Force, or are you the managing director of Swan Force?
So I do a lot of things at Swan Force being one of them, where we welcome people that want to spread the Bitcoin message, and you can get rewarded for doing that. So yeah, I manage Swan Force, and also I'm working with Pacific Bitcoin. So that is the conference that's coming up in October, and just kind of making everything happen in the background to make sure it's one of the most amazing events.
I always get the emails and feel so jealous because I go there. I want you guys to come to DC, which probably isn't as exciting.
Well, Corey loves Santa Monica, and I think it used to be an amazing hub for Bitcoin, but after the pandemic happened, everything got shut down. So last year was actually our first time doing the event, and it went pretty great. So excited to be the second year, and yeah, and keep planning it to try to make it better than last year, because yes, last year was a total hit.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling I get. You guys get some big names, and sometimes big names, even if you're not even in the Bitcoin world, that people would recognize. But for me, I get excited about Lynn Alden.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
who's on the? Is she? Would you call her on the board, or what's her
Yeah,
title? This one.
she's one of our advisors. So she's been with us since, I want to say, almost the very beginning. And yeah, we love all of her content and contribution that she does with Bitcoin, and that's one of our biggest pillars, education. So we feel very lucky to have someone like Lynn be on board with us and collaborate with us. It's really, really awesome.
Yeah, she's great. I sometimes I have to admit it's hard to follow her because my brain is not hers. But yeah, I find when I can follow her information is invaluable and definitely a pillar of the just the whole Bitcoin community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to maybe I could set this up for anyone who's watching. It's not live, if that wasn't obvious, but I reached out to you because I'm a Bitcoin maximalist, meaning that I only believe that Bitcoin is really the one true, the king of crypto for a reason, and really the one that's worth focusing on. While the others, while there may be some utility here and there, and maybe that teases out, but still has a lot of room for error and also bad behavior.
Hmm.
And so a maximalist really just focuses on Bitcoin. And so Swan, I was attracted to Swan because you guys just do Bitcoin because it's a Bitcoin maximalist organization. And so, and just to sum it up, so that's where I buy my Bitcoin because I trust Swan. But then also now a member of the Swan Force, where if
Nice.
I refer folks, they use my link, then I'll get 20. I think I remember this 25% of their whoever signs on their fees for the first year.
That's
And,
correct. Yep.
yeah, and I got really lucky. I think I got one guy, but he got a big one. He got a pretty large IRA, and so
Very cool.
yeah, so I was very excited to see. Whoa, I already got some Bitcoin. So that was
Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty neat. And I guess that will continue to come in for a year, which is pretty cool. As I mentioned on when we talked earlier, a part of the private club because I had saw a tweet from Corey Clipston, the CEO of Bitcoin. He said, "Hey, if anybody sells all their altcoins and buys Bitcoin, I'll give them a private membership." I was going to do that anyway, and I said, "I'll do it."
That was how he closed the deal on you, right?
Yeah, I was really impressed because he's a big guy in the community. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers, and I was just impressed that he responded to me right away. And then got me linked up, and that started a really positive relationship with Swan. I still got to get him on this
awesome.
show, but
Yeah, you will.
one of these days when he gets back from, well, I don't know if we can say where he is or not, but we can back there.
Yep, yep.
So tell me, Camilla, your journey from. Well, I know that were you born in Colombia and then ended up in Florida. And how did you get turned on to Bitcoin?
I moved to the States when I was 6 years old, and it's the same story. I feel like every immigrant will tell you they come here to America to find better opportunities. So that's what my mom did essentially. And I have to say, I'm very thankful for everything this country has offered, but there is a huge problem, and I guess we'll get to that. That's what got me into Bitcoin. And so I went to school, college, and then I got married. And I had heard about Bitcoin, remembering very well, because I usually talk in shows and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't really think I knew about Bitcoin. But looking back, I first heard about Bitcoin from a coworker in 2017. And apparently he mines Bitcoin, but I had no idea what that even meant or what Bitcoin was for the matter. And then fast forward to 2020, when the pandemic hit, I was engaged, and my husband at the time he's in commercial real estate. So he saw that everything was just like plummeting. And he said, I'm going to look into gold. And so he started following gold people on Twitter. And as he was looking, one of the comments on a gold post said, gold is a shitcoin, buy Bitcoin, from an anonymous person. And so he goes, oh my gosh, Bitcoin again, what is this? So he started going down that rabbit hole, and I had no idea. Fast forward later into the year, we get married, move in together. I see he's very into Bitcoin on Twitter, reading books. He was trying to get me to read the Bitcoin Standard. And in my head, I thought, this is going to go way over my head. I'm not going to really pay attention. I'll let him be the person that handles that topic. So out of ignorance, I just kind of, blocked myself. But then during Thanksgiving, he was having a conversation with his dad about Bitcoin. And I just sat there and listened to them just go back and forth on it. And I got very intrigued. I was like, wow, he really does know about it. It seems very important. And so after that trip, I read the Bitcoin Standard, and I was completely hooked. I was very mad because I had no idea how the world worked. And I felt as if there was, I was blindfolded and that blindfold was taken off. I realized that no one really teaches you about what money is. And we're always, working for money. And it's a very important topic in our life, but we don't even know what it is or, what it stands for, where it comes from, how it's managed. So that to me was very eye-opening. And I was someone that was very disciplined when it came to my money, in terms that I was a very good saver. I just didn't know that my purchasing power was losing money very quickly. And so I think that was my trigger point to actually pay attention to see what the heck is going on. Why is this even happening? And that's when I started to go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. I started to get into Bitcoin Twitter, and that's where I found this huge community that was super welcoming. And I was just so excited to learn that, I eventually got a job at Swan because of it. It all happened very quickly, but it's been an amazing journey so far. And so that problem that I was talking about earlier about what's wrong with this country and overall in general is what I realized is I came to this country, my mom came to this country to find a better future for us. And all that hard work is actually being stolen because of inflation and because of everything that's going on. So that was a very big trigger point for me, and kind of the flame that was ignited inside of me saying, I need to share this with more people because this is a huge problem and a lot of people haven't woken up to it yet. So now here I am, completely orange pilled and on fire about Bitcoin.
It seems like it is almost like cookie cutter, the experience folks have when they kind of, I guess I'm kind of scared of this term, but wake up, because it's used in so many weird ways, but wake up to the how things are run, and the whole deal with purchasing power going away with inflation and all that kind of stuff. But when you described your experience with me, I mean, it was the same thing. A friend just told me about it, and then something clicked, and I was voracious about reading. I must have watched 1,000 hours of YouTube videos, which is a more bad thing, but through the 1,000 hours, you kind of figure out, hey, who can I trust? That's a voice out there. And also, the only thing about it is, like you said, getting angry. For me, I think it's just fearful, because by the time I got into Bitcoin, I had become responsible with my money and how I invested, and now I just don't have any faith in that at all. And there's a part of me that wants to take all my 401k and just take it out and take the penalties. But that's a little scary too, so I think the approach for me has been, well, get enough Bitcoin at least to hedge your bet against what looks like a system. And then, hey, if it goes to the moon, like we all think it will, then you don't need to have that much to probably be okay. If you buy it now, and especially this dip. So tell me, what did you start doing at Swan, and then how did that lead to managing director of Swan Force?
So it's the most comical story, I want to say, but I feel as if everything aligned perfectly for me to get into the point that I am. So I'm going to tell you how I actually got my job at Swan.
Okay.
So talking about that Thanksgiving dinner, I get on Twitter. It's probably the end of November 2020. And that's during that time until the end of December is when Bitcoin was skyrocketing from 9,000 all the way up to 20K. And so it was a lot of euphoria in the space. So what I started doing is actually making very funny TikTok videos about me sharing my experience of how excited I was to get into Bitcoin. And yes, so I don't know if you've seen stuff from the Crypto Couple, from Carla or Walker. There are other TikTokers that actually went on Twitter later on, but those videos just started catching a lot of views, and I was very surprised because that was not my intention at all. To me, I just wanted to make it a fun journey into getting to know about Bitcoin and sharing that experience. Plus, it was the pandemic, and I was really bored.
After this, I'm definitely going to look. I just got TikTok, but finish your story,
Yeah. And so those started to get a lot of attention. I think I started with around 68 followers. I had Twitter for a while, but never used it. And then it started getting a lot of traction to the point where I was getting 10,000 followers very quickly. It was just a very huge spike. And the people at Swan noticed. And at that point, a lot of people think Swan is a very old company, but it actually isn't. It was very early on. There were only about 30 people on the team, so they were needing help with their marketing and social media. So they reached out to me, and I told them, I have to be completely honest with you. I'm not a Bitcoin expert. I'm just starting on my journey. I'm just learning, but I'm very excited. And they said, that's exactly the perspective that we need, because we need someone who hasn't been down the rabbit hole so deeply that maybe doesn't see things, the same way we do, a fresh perspective. And so that's actually how I started working with Swan, doing the social media And then we were able to do the conference in 2021, be part of it, the one in Miami, the Bitcoin conference. And yeah, just working with the team as I have a title, but I want to say when we work at Swan, we help wherever we can. So it's not just very siloed to your position, but it's that Bitcoin mentality, as in how can I serve you, or what can we do to serve Bitcoiners that are out there. So I think just working, and then eventually I think they just saw that I was really good with people. And so they were like, okay, Swan Force is going to be on your plate. And so that's kind of how I got in that position, and now switching, like I said, to Pacific Bitcoin. So it's been a very, fluid, fast journey with the company now being over 100 employees. So, and we're all remote, which is insane. It's been a heck of a journey, but that's how I got my job, through silly TikTok videos on Twitter and then getting noticed.
I love that. That's so encouraging. And I love the other thing you said too. I love that Swan leadership, or whoever was responsible for hiring you, saw the value in someone new to Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
but had the energy for it. I always say that one of my greatest gifts is, well, sometimes being a dumb dumb. If I can understand it, like if someone's explaining something and I don't understand it, chances are someone else isn't going to understand it either.
Right,
But if I can
exactly.
understand it, yeah, then I can explain it, and I feel like that's a gift to kind of know.
Absolutely. That's something actually very wise, I want to say, that another team member from Swan said. Her name is Kristen Thompson, and she is also like a marketing guru. She said, you always want to make sure that when you're trying to explain something to someone, is at least at a sixth grade level. Try not to go above that, because you want to reach the common person and speak their language, because sometimes conversations get a little bit too, I want to say, extreme in terms of level of understanding. So how are you going to capture someone's attention if they may feel like they're not ready for that caliber? So it is really important to remember, if we're trying to orange pill 99% of the world, we have to make sure that we're speaking their language and try to figure out how we can actually reach them and get them to pay attention. Because if we do it by trying to sound smarter than everyone else, then that's not going to really reach anyone.
And it's already already pretty challenging.
It is.
Blaine, especially if you're older, right? Where even the internet and email is still new,
Yeah.
them, relatively speaking. It is quite, I mean, it's digital currency. Well, so I can't touch it. I can't feel it. I'm like, well, if you get a ledger, a what?
Yeah,
self-custody. What's self-custody?
Yeah, it's very challenging to try to explain Bitcoin to people. But what I found is you want to make sure that you listen mostly, instead of just, kind of like word vomit, or, try to load all of this information on them. Because first of all, why are they going to care? So first you want to listen to what their pain points are, right? So listening to, or my story at least, what really got me to think about Bitcoin was the whole thing about my money is devaluing. What was I saving that money for, right? So what was the purpose of that money? In my head, it was, well, I'm just starting out a marriage. I want to be able to have children, have a family. How am I going to have something that's sustainable in the long term when I don't have enough to buy a house today? And that's a problem with a lot of people my age, being able to find a house or something. So in my head, my problem was, how am I going to be able to have something that's going to be able to sustain my family in the long run? So when I found out that the money I was saving was not going to be, was devaluing, was kind of getting me away from my goal, that's what really triggered me. So when it comes to orange pilling people, is what is the one thing that is going to trigger them or to try to get to pay attention? What is their pain point? If you touch them in that pain point, then they're finally going to be like, okay, tell me more. Because nobody wants to be messed with, or said no, or no, you're not going to be able to achieve that, or someone's stealing from you. No one likes to know that they're being stolen from, let alone not know that you're being stolen from, right? So when you kind of give that perspective to someone and say, this is actually something that you should care about because it's hurting you as an individual, and you should look at an alternative solution more than, oh, if you buy now, then it's going to go to the moon and we're all going to be really rich. Like, people are not going to care because that seems like another scam that we've been sold, from all over the place. So I think that's one of the biggest tips on trying to orange pill people is actually listen to what their pain is and then hit them with the, well, this is happening to you too, right? You need this tool.
Yeah.
Desperately.
It almost sounds to someone who doesn't know Bitcoin as a good recipe for getting someone into a cult as well. However, the difference, and it is a little culty, but the difference is there's no one trying to get dominion over anybody else. And maybe that's a good segue. It's decentralized is the biggest theme, one of the biggest themes about Bitcoin. There's not, and maybe we can go into this, but there's not a CEO. It was someone, we call him Satoshi, built it. It's software, right? Basically, but he built it in a way that's immutable on the blockchain. We can talk maybe about blockchain. And everybody since 2009, maybe even earlier, has been trying to hack it, corrupt it, steal from it, and has not been successful because it was built so well. And there's not a CEO. So and he said, hey, this is built so it goes to 21 million and then there's no more. That way mitigates the inflation piece because it's scarce, keeps it scarce, and no one can make more. And I bring that up just because, with all the other 20,000 or whatever, however many there are of these altcoins, there's a CEO, there's a board. If they felt like it, they could vote to print more of their coins, and they're diminishing the purchasing power or utility of their coins. Just like our government does to us with the dollar.
Exactly. Which is one of the biggest reasons why from the get-go, I just wanted to focus on Bitcoin and nothing else. So, because you're absolutely right. What's the point of looking into these things if they're exactly like our government or like the governments around the world, where someone can just go in and change the rules for their benefit, and then us, the citizens or the people that are investing in this, get screwed? Like we're their exit, and they get more rich. So I think that's the biggest thing to think about is, who are we going against? Is this whole corruption that's been going on, call it government, call it, all these other altcoins, what side do you want to be on? What side do you want to fight in? So that's why it's super important to do your research. And there's a reason, like you said, why Bitcoin is king and why nothing has reached it so far. It has had minimal downtime all these years, and it continues to get stronger the more it gets attacked. So in my head, there is no competition, and it's why we should focus all our efforts to continue to build in this community to help others around us. It's a tool. Bitcoin is essentially a tool that we all need. It's just that not everyone has realized that it's a tool that they need just yet. But I feel like we're getting there, slowly but surely.
And it is sort of an evangelism for it. We're trying to increase adoption again because it's in their interest. I mean,
Mhm.
it helps everybody, or it helps Bitcoiners because the more adoption, the more you'll see the price go up and whatnot. It's but the main cause is, I think, is when you're sharing with other people, is the excitement, because it's just a good thing, and you want to share a good thing with other people, and you want to help them, um, help them secure themselves
Exactly.
financially, for the future, where they might not be seeing that at the very least every year the dollar goes down 7%. You know, inflation. Another word for it is it's counterfeit. It's counterfeiting.
Yep. It's legal counterfeit because it's legal if they do it, but if you tried to do it, you would go to jail.
There's a couple of exciting things happening, and I'm curious of your take on it, because I'm still not indifferent, ambivalent about it. But like the recent BlackRock ETF submission, and I've said this before on other, I guess, reflections on this show, that BlackRock submitted, I think, 526 ETFs. Only one was denied, so there's a pretty high chance, and then that one was later approved. So they're really batting 100, but there's a really good chance this ETF will get approved. That's the assumption.
Hmm.
By some of the powers that be that I don't hobnob with, but um, is there, what's your take on that? Because I guess there's also a fear for me that BlackRock will come in and buy it all up, buy whatever's there and snatch it up, and I don't know, maybe put a premium on it to buy through them. I'm not sure.
I think one of my biggest worries when it comes to that, because whenever I see ETF talks or about if it's going to get approved or not, I think more, well, who is this really going to benefit, right? And in my head, just like you said, if they're going to be the ones selling Bitcoin, one, is it really going to be your Bitcoin? Are you able to take self custody over it or not? That's one of the biggest things, because if you can't take self custody over that Bitcoin, it's not your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's an IOU. So I think the biggest thing about these ETFs is trying to get people to buy Bitcoin before any of this gets approved, and for it to be real Bitcoin that you can take self custody of. Because at the end of the day, I really do believe that eventually big corporations or companies are all going to come in and try to buy as much as they can. And the thing about it is that it's scarce, right? So like you said, BlackRock is going to be coming for your Bitcoin or trying to come for your Bitcoin. And Michael Saylor put it very eloquently. He said, in the future, around the lines, he said, in the future, someone smarter than you is going to want to buy it from you. It depends if you're going to actually sell it to them or not. But those companies are coming. Those ETFs are coming. Do you want to be in the forefront of them and start buying now before all of that happens? So I really don't care about ETFs that much, because I'm going to continue buying Bitcoin and making sure I can self-custody. Can that do something to the price? Sure. But what I want to say to regular citizens is it doesn't matter. You shouldn't wait for something to happen then, because there's already things you can do right now before that happens. And it's buying through Swan if you want, or buy from anywhere that you want to buy, as long as you can actually take self-custody and it's yours.
Yeah, and that's just because you mentioned Michael Saylor, the former CEO of MicroStrategy, and now I don't know what his title is. He's still there, but he's just focused on.
He's like the chairman of, yeah.
And just with that too, because I guess banks can't buy it directly. They can't have it on their balance sheets yet. But the big ones, Bank of America, I think Fidelity, a ton of big banks are buying MicroStrategy stock. This is my understanding from, again, thousands and maybe multiple thousands of hours on researching it, but are buying MicroStrategy stock because that's kind of a proxy for Bitcoin.
Exactly. A lot of exposure.
Because I think MicroStrategy is the second largest holder of Bitcoin ever.
I think so too. I mean, I've lost track at this point.
It's like
Whenever you see that MicroStrategy is buying, you should be buying Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, well, that's how I feel. I mean, that the other piece for me that was just convincing is watching all these people that my intuition at least tells me are very bright, very smart, and they're doing all this stuff. I'm kind of just following the leader for things that maybe I would
Absolutely.
want to those conclusions on my own. Again, and there's no reason to scam with Bitcoin, at least in terms of the folks that are preaching it like Sailor. He's not getting anything out by selling you on Bitcoin. You know, he doesn't get a chunk of
Exactly.
your Bitcoin if you buy.
Exactly. And something to keep in mind when it comes to it's what you put it perfectly. Watch what people are doing, not what they say. Because what have these big companies said before in the past about Bitcoin? Bitcoin is dead. Bitcoin is a scam. Bitcoin has no value. Like all of these bad headlines, and they've all come from BlackRock, JP Morgan, like all of these big institutions. But oh no, they're now suddenly changing, their mind. I feel like they try to manipulate to their advantage because they're going to want to buy as much Bitcoin as they can. And if they're scaring people away from it and making people sell their Bitcoin so they can buy it, they're the ones benefiting from that. So it's like you said, watch what they're doing, not what they're saying. Be careful with headlines and do your own research because that's how you get conviction to want to buy more and understand more on the subject. Going down that rabbit hole and listening to 1,000 hours, I feel like it goes by so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes by very quickly, but you start to understand a lot of things and it just becomes so much easier to buy. When the price dips, you're in a zen state. You're not freaking out like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my money. It's all about this long-term mentality, as we like to say, low time preference, where just take it easy. Think about it as a savings account for the future, right? You're not gonna, if you have a 401k right now, like you said, you don't want the penalties, right? So you're not gonna just cash all of it out. It's something for the future. If people start thinking about Bitcoin as something like that, it's going to make their journey so much easier. So much easier.
I'm so glad you said that. I have some friends before I even understood Bitcoin, bought it and sold it because they freaked out because it was going low. And then my experience is just as you put it, this is a long-term game. And if anyone's listening who's new to Bitcoin, HODL is the key phrase. Hold on for dear life, and just ride the wave. It's gonna be a wave, a lot of waves, a lot of ups and downs. But the idea is that through time, it's gonna stabilize, and then we say go to the moon. Maybe not. Even if it doesn't go to the moon, it's gonna be. The idea is everybody who's smarter than me thinks it's the most asymmetric value rise in maybe history.
Absolutely.
So hold on to it, and then even when it rises, don't sell it. Take some out if you need it, but keep it as a generational wealth and take care of your kids.
Exactly.
And then, so speaking of that, so right now we are seeing a dip, right? It was at 30,000. Seems like forever. 20.
Bitcoin, do something. It starts going down.
Yeah, and it was I guess consolidating is a word folks use, and then in bated breath, you think it's either going to break out or it's going to break down. That's the wrong term, I think, to dip. But just in the last day, it went from 30 or so to I think we're at 26. And I don't know. Do you follow Gareth Soloway?
I don't.
Oh, no. I love this guy. He's a day trader. He's a trader. So I don't advocate for that. I think that is very risky. But he's very smart and he's a long-term bull on Bitcoin, but he still plays the swings.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
saying against, a lot of people have been thinking we're going to break out, and he's been saying all along, and I believe him because he's been right so many times, that we're dipping. And we may, in his mind, if we break certain, lines, certain support lines in the charts, it could go as low as 9,500. Now that's a big whopping dip. Now, is it going to go that low? I think that's unlikely, but he's got support lines along the way, where it's likely, like if it breaks 25,000, it's likely to go to, I can't remember what he said now, but 19,000 or something like that. And maybe we've already said it, but I guess my question is, what do you say? Because that could be kind of scary to watch. Now, for me, I'm just hodl, hold on for dear life. What do you say to people who maybe are critical of Bitcoin because they're seeing all those dips and the volatility?
Yeah. When you were saying if it goes as low as 9,000, what went inside my head was, oh my goodness, what an opportunity that would be. And I don't feel like it would stay there very long because you have people that are just gonna eat that up. Like cheap stats, as we like to call it, are the best stats. And a lot of people have a savings goal in mind, right? I want to get to this amount. It's probably going to be easier to get to one whole Bitcoin. If you have one whole Bitcoin, you're already way ahead of the population. And that's when that generational wealth can make a huge difference later on in the future. So to the people that say, oh, it's very volatile, it can crash, I'm going to lose my money, I would once again just tell them about their time preference and make them zoom out and look at the Bitcoin chart. It's been 13 years, right? The volatility has been crazy, but if you zoom out, you see that it just keeps going up and up and up. So those dips are just temporary, and we're following historic patterns, right? And I feel like it's just going to continue to be the same because I don't see the dollar like becoming an alternative anytime soon. I feel like the government's still going to keep printing money and devaluing our dollar. The economies around the world are crazy. If you've been looking at what's happening in Argentina, how they just inflated their money and how it's hurt their citizens. I've heard rumors about, oh, well, if this new candidate goes in and actually takes out the central bank, he's actually going to dollarize the country. So you're already going to be setting them up with another failing currency. And so I feel like that it's a domino effect that's going to happen until they figure out that there's a better solution with Bitcoin, how El Salvador is doing it. So volatility can be scary only if you just zoom in at a very short time. But if you actually look at the historics, there's nothing to worry about. And it's actually very exciting when there's a dip and there's a buying opportunity because, like I said, a lot of people have in mind, I want to reach this goal of having this much Bitcoin. This is actually just going to expedite me getting closer to that goal. So it's very exciting for me. I hope it dips a little more, not going to lie, just selfishly.
Yeah. Well, do you guys at Swan probably everybody does, but BTFD, buy that friggin' dip?
yes. Smash buy those cheap sats. Just go in, and that's the beautiful thing. And another really good thing when you think about volatility and why we talk about dollar cost averaging as being important is if you're buying a little bit every single day, you're going to be able to kind of average out all that volatility and kind of be like, at a good pace. So I definitely recommend that, buying whatever you can, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever. And whenever you're able to automate anything in your finances that gives you peace of mind is super crucial. Why wouldn't you do that with Bitcoin if it's also like a finance tool? So if you're automating things in your own life when it comes to like your bank account or paying your credit cards or whatever, do the same thing with Bitcoin and you'll feel like, okay, like I said, that done place where you're cool, it dipped, who cares? I haven't even checked the price in a while. I would have known the price dip if I wasn't working in the Bitcoin industry, but it doesn't matter because I'm still buying a little bit every single time that I can. And just like I said, trying to hit that big goal of getting as much Bitcoin as I possibly can.
Yeah, and the dollar cost average, I think basically what you're saying is out of sight, out of mind too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think with everybody, when you first get into it, I was checking maybe every 20 minutes the price.
Oh, I would wake up and that's the first thing I would look at.
And now, yeah, it's lower. Now I'll actually go a few days, and then I'm like, oh yeah, what's going on there? Let's talk politics for a second. What's the feeling with you or at Swan, the political climate as it comes to, I mean, people, I think, people say political climate as it comes to cryptocurrency, but I wonder if you have any thoughts on political climate as it comes to Bitcoin. Bring it back to kind of the point of this show, radical middle, and we mentioned this when I called you earlier, but I feel like Bitcoin is the great equalizer, and it's in a right and a left party system. I'm going to try not to go on a diatribe here, but who's really? It feels really just like a one party system, the business class, because the politicians are all in their pockets, and so all the fighting back and forth is just at least in my mind, a distraction. But maybe we'll leave that to the side. But where do you think we are politically in getting regulation through government so that we can this has a chance to be regulated and ETFs and all that kind of stuff? What are your thoughts on that and where we are?
We try to be very neutral when it comes to Swan in politics. We don't try to highlight like one candidate over the other. We're just whatever is good for Bitcoin and for Bitcoiners, like that's what we want to focus on. So politics aren't really a huge part of the conversation. I can tell you my personal thought is the government is always going to want to get involved and always try to control Bitcoin. And we've seen it done through mining, that mining is bad for the environment, but even though there's 100 other things that are really bad for the environment, but they don't want to focus on that. They want to focus on Bitcoin. There's been campaigns against Bitcoin mining because of the climate change. So I think it's always trying to see how the government can get involved in affairs that I feel like they shouldn't really be involved in. So the government is always going to try to get involved. I can tell you we've seen it in China as well. China trying to ban Bitcoin. I don't know how many times at this point, but what I realized is it doesn't matter what a government does or what their policies are. All I know is that there's going to be a new block to mine every 10 minutes. There's still going to be transactions with Bitcoin. It's just something that can't be stopped. And that's one of my biggest takeaways from it all, and why I love it, that no government can stop this revolution from going. It might get a little bit more difficult. They might try to make it more difficult, but that's the beautiful thing is us humans and what we're starting to see in the world today. If you don't like where you are, you can pick up your stuff and then go somewhere where it's going to be a little bit more friendly for you. So I'm hoping that the United States is not doesn't try to stop the innovation that Bitcoin is and actually sees it as an opportunity to help its citizens and the country as a whole, because I feel like it just keeps digging itself into a deeper hole where a lot of people are waking up to realize, like, what the heck are we doing with our lives? We're just, working to pay bills, and groceries are a lot more expensive. And how am I going to buy a house? How am I going to pay for all of these things, take care of my family? I don't know if you saw that one country star that made his song talking about how your dollar ain't shit, excuse my language, but basically saying, like, what the heck is going on? People need to start waking up to this. So I think as long as they don't try to stop, Bitcoin from just being Bitcoin and helping its citizens, I think we'll be at a good place. I feel like the current administration has not done a very good job with it because they're very focused on climate change and all of these things, but are not actually looking at the facts of how Bitcoin can actually help. The whole climate change situation, how it's not bad for the environment. So politics, it's always going to be very slow for them to understand and a lot of work to try to get them to understand. But I think we shouldn't be frustrated because of it and just keep doing our own thing, our own projects on the side, talking to people about Bitcoin because it already has a momentum to where it can't be stopped. So yeah, I think just as individuals, vote with your money. You know, it's very hard to now believe in the voting system. Like, how corrupt is that? Like, can I actually trust that? So vote with your money. How do you vote with your money? You start not being so involved with the dollar and actually start incorporating Bitcoin in your life, and you're already kind of separating yourself from that system. So I think that's the goal, to get out of that corrupt system and into something where you can trust, you can verify, not trust, and actually take control of something in your life, because that's what we need nowadays. Feel like we control something in our own lives because everything's just out of control completely.
Yeah, well, no, that's great. So well put. Gosh, I'm almost wondering if that's a perfect spot to end, but I have one.
Sure.
That was really well put, Camila. I appreciate that. That was a helpful way to think it through. You know, sometimes I wonder if people are scared to have control. I wonder if they're worried about that. But that's part of the evangelism, right? Is to teach why that's better, because otherwise you leave yourself vulnerable to a government that could easily be corrupted and take your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just a little pawn in their game, it feels like, and it's very sad.
So tell me this though. Speaking of self-custody, please correct me here. But like, you know, I have a Swan IRA and I also have a separate account that I do dollar cost average into both. And I also self-custody. But how does Swan guarantee, because you mentioned like if it's BlackRock, it's an IOU. How does Swan guarantee that they're actually holding your Bitcoin somewhere safe?
That's a really good question. Well, as a company, we always preach self-custody. So, you know, with your personal account, we have the withdrawals that can be set automatic. So you can always be taking that Bitcoin into your wallet whenever it's ready to be. So we always make sure self-custody. We have a blog post about it. You know, if you contact our customer support, they'll even like guide you through it if you need it, because it can be a little bit overwhelming for beginners. But we just want to make sure that everyone is living that ethos of, you know, self-custody, don't trust anyone. And because like you said, we don't know what can happen. Regulation can happen where, you know, everything could just hit the fan. And obviously we want to make sure that you're protecting yourself. I know I probably don't have the best answer for this. I know people on the team that probably can explain to you the technology behind what we use to make sure that there's like high security and stuff. But especially with your 401k, with your Roth IRA. But I just know we try to do, like I said, what's best for Bitcoin and Bitcoiners. And if there's always like something on our radar that it's like, wait, hold on, we have to kind of get out of this and make sure that we're protecting our clients the best way possible, that we'll definitely do that.
Yeah, well, and that's probably maybe a question for Herman. Do you know Herman? He's my IRA guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Swan.
No, there's so many people on our team now that it's like hard for me. Like we'll get on a team call and it's like, and here's another brand new person, and it's like, oh man, I need name tags next time we see each other in person.
and going to these, Q&As with that Corey's on, that Lynn Alden's on.
Yeah.
Answered a couple of questions of mine, which I thought was just really awesome. But really just growing to trust and just seeing it's a great organization. So I'll ask Herman, my IRA guy, because that's the one thing. Because the other account I take it out and I put it self.
Yeah.
But with the IRA, I don't, because I think it just needs to stay there.
There's like laws involved.
I think it's insured too with Swan.
Yeah. Like there's a whole bunch of layers that, to be honest, I don't have all the answers to it. But I can tell you behind the scenes when they were working on this product, they were working so hard to just make it the best possible. And I know I can't talk on things that are coming up, but after our conference, Pacific Bitcoin, there's going to be really exciting announcements on other things that we've been working on. So definitely stay tuned for those.
That's going to be announced at Pacific Bitcoin or at the next?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Some things are going to be announced October 5th and 6th. Yeah. So coming up soon. We're gearing up for it.
Oh, that's coming up. Yeah, that's great. Why
can't
wait? And maybe that's a good note to end on, Camila.
Sounds good.
I really, really appreciate you giving some time. This has gone better than I could have even hoped for.
That's awesome, Jesse.
Yeah, with your insight and everything. And then, what I'll do, what I'm going to do, because we didn't talk about Swan Force that much. I'm just going to respond to the email you sent out.
Okay.
Hey, ask me questions. And maybe these are your questions. And I'm going to ignore my questions.
But yeah, if you have any other questions pertaining to Swan Force, feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to help.
I really appreciate that. That's great. Camila Campton, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service to Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
I wish you the best with your family, and I'm sure we'll talk soon. Maybe we'll see each other at one of these days.
Yes, please go, Jesse. It'll be so much fun.
All right. Well, have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you. Talk soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.